for joining me today on Women and Alcohol Live. I'm your host, Nancy McKay, and today my very special guests are Julie Moon and Ben Horn. Hello, guys. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having us.
So, Julie and her husband Ben met in the rooms of AA 17 years ago and have been together ever since in wedded bliss. Ben had already had a year of sobriety, and Julie was fresh out of the bottle. But they instantly connected and became fast friends. They started having sober parties during Bronco season, and they knew that that was the life that they both really wanted, and they'd do anything to keep it. So they really dug into the work and just did everything they needed to do to stay sober. So somewhere in the middle of all of that, Julie fell in love with Ben. And on the night before Julie's first sober anniversary, Ben proposed. So they've been married for 15 years. They've been able to maneuver through the last 17 and 18 years of sobriety without a drop of alcohol. And their relationship gets stronger every day. There have been ups and downs, especially when Julie likes to scare Ben on scare cam, and but they work things out, and they treat every day like a fresh start. Ben and Julie live in the Denver metro area with their adorable dog Bosley, and they own a very successful construction company. We will be having adult conversation with the very good chance of adult language. So if you have children in the room, now's a good time for earphones. If you want to leave a comment or have a question for Julie or Ben or myself, you'll need to give StreamYard permission to access your name, and you can do that. I've got the link at the top of the chat box. So you're welcome to drop us a note, let us know you're watching, and we'll get on with it here. So, Julie, Ben, I'm going to start with Ben because Julie has a tendency to take over. So, Ben, tell us a little bit more about your background, when you started drinking, and what made you decide to quit.
Well, I actually started pretty young. I had a lot of opportunities, I suppose, with I had a relative that worked at Coors, and her husband was my buddy. So it was accepted in our family to drink off of mom's beer, but we'd go to Uncle Jim's place and go down in the basement and shoot pool, and he had like a fridge full of whiskey, not just beer. So, and whiskey was certainly one of my drinks of choice. And I think that it tasted good. When I was younger, it wasn't just to drink to get the buzz. When I became a teenager, I liked the taste of it. And, it led on into pot and other drugs as well. So a long path of drinking and drugging, and not wanting to live that way anymore got me to the rooms of AA.
Well, that's great. How old were you?
I was 41. So if you figure I started at 13, 14, pretty hot and heavy, long time.
Yeah. So how about you, Julie?
Well, our stories are quite a bit different. I started about the same age. I had tried my first beer outside of the Roll Arena in Kingman, Arizona, with a guy that I had the hots for. And he said, "Here, you want a beer?" And I was like, okay. So I tried it, and I took a couple sips, and I thought, that's disgusting. Why do people drink that? So I waited till my first year in high school with a friend of mine and decided to give alcohol another try. And so we kind of unleashed on her dad's liquor cabinet, and it was my brilliant idea to take a Tupperware glass that was about this big full of all of the different hard liquors in her dad's liquor cabinet.
Ooh.
And so, not knowing what this was going to taste like, or that I, in my drinking career, was not going to like the taste of hard alcohol anyway, we put a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So vodka, tequila, rum, whatever he had, we put it in there and we filled up that Tupperware glass, and then we bought a pack of Bubblicious gum and chewed a couple pieces each and made a blanket to put over our tongue. Yeah, we were real smart. And so we took turns from the 6-block walk from our house to the high school drinking this Tupperware glass, and I was drunk before we hit campus.
Oh.
So yeah, I got suspended for a couple of weeks, and I don't remember a whole lot of that. I remember waking up and my mom was waiting for me outside in the house in the living room. But we, of course, got caught and got, sent home and suspended. But I never really thought, ooh, I like the taste of alcohol like Ben. I immediately, when I found out what it would do for me to get me drunk, that's what I went after. And so I didn't really party in high school, but the minute I got out of high school, and I mean the minute I got out of high school, I started my drinking career and went to a junior college for 2 years. And I truly barely remember the 2 years of that. And I was off and running, and I don't know how I'm alive, but I am, thank God. It's a miracle.
Wow. So how old were you when you decided to get sober?
30. How old were you? You were
41.
41. So I was 31. Yeah.
Wow. That's young.
I felt old, but yeah.
Yeah. I was 52 when I got sober. So, yeah. So how long, when you started to realize that you had a problem, how long was it before you really decided that you needed to do something about it?
I'll let you go first.
Well, they talk about hitting bottom, and I had been bouncing on the bottom for a loose term we use for fishing. When you're trolling behind the boat, you want to bounce the bottom to get the big ones. Well, I was bouncing the bottom for quite a long time, and didn't really reach out or didn't think that I had a choice. Didn't have exposure to help, or I don't know, rehab facilities. Didn't really consider that. And I think the last 2 weeks of my drinking and drugging, it kind of came to light that I'm going to die this way, that there's no other path, because I was 156 pounds. I'm 200 pound guy.
I've seen pictures. Yeah. Oh God.
And I was in Indio, California in the dead of summer, and homeless, just in a real ugly state. Here I'm at the time a carpenter, and what tools weren't in the pawn shop were gone, disappeared. My van was broke down. I didn't have anything, and I thought, well, I knew of a place that was York Street. My cousin and I ironically lived on York Street, just that same block, in 2 different rentals when we were younger.
Wow.
Often wondered what they were doing on the porch there. So for some reason that place was kind of gleaming. My mom lived, still does, in Cheeseman Park. And I thought, well, I could probably hang out with my mom for a couple weeks. And that's when I reached out to her and tucked my tail between my legs and, said, I want some help, and I can't do it on my own. And, I had prayed out in the desert a few times, because I always figured, I didn't pray a lot when I was younger, and certainly didn't pray a lot in my drinking and drugging, but I was doing that my last couple of weeks just for a little bit of guidance. And it got me to my mom's. My buddy, another person who had died sober, gave me my first big book the first night I got into Denver. And that was, I think, a Thursday night, or no, must have been Friday, because the very next day I went to my first meeting at York Street, and I'll never forget, going up those stairs And because finished carpenter a lot, you know, I felt the need to look at the stairs, and I felt them, and it felt good, and actually I didn't feel that uncomfortable. And after my first meeting, people came up to me and started talking to me, so I was felt right at home.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. How about you, Julie? Did you what was the straw that broke the camel's back for you?
You know, I played with it for a while, not really coming to terms with the fact that I was an alcoholic. I knew I was an alcoholic in my late 20s. I have had people in my family, you know, around me that are in recovery, and that had kind of pushed that button and let me know that I may have a drinking problem. But I thought everybody in their 20s partied the way I did, and thought, well, that's just stupid. Why would you even tell me, you know, to slow down my drinking? This is what everybody does in their 20s.
Right.
And so I kind of teetered with it a little bit, but the last 4 years of my drinking got to where it just wasn't enjoyable. And so what my bottom was not a DUI or an accident or anything awful. I had had all those bottoms happen in my drinking. They just weren't enough. And so my story is actually quite unique. One of my best friends at the time, she got sober. I was camping, getting drunk with some friends of mine up in the mountains here in Colorado. And when I came down the mountain, I had checked my messages because I didn't have any cell service where we were at. And my message said, hey, don't try to call me. I'm in Florida in recovery. I've checked myself into a recovery house. I can't live this way anymore. Don't want to live this way. And I hung up the phone and started crying. And I said, you know what, you guys, I'm not even sure if I said I'm going to go to an AA meeting, but I said, you know, so-and-so is checked into rehab. And we talked about that the whole way home. And I said, you know, I got to do something about my drinking, because the drunkest person I know other than myself is this person. And if she can do it, I can do it. And so while she was in rehab, I started going to York Street, which anybody, if someone's on here watching that's saying, what is York Street? York Street is a place here in Denver that is a very well-known sobriety house. And I believe that it's miraculous, because I walked up those stairs, it changed my life, and I met my husband. It's like the country song. I got everything back. I got, you know, the perfect dream guy, and it's, you know, there's a lot of ups and downs in sobriety. There's no doubt about it. But what a life York Street and AA has given the both of us. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So what was the most difficult thing about getting sober for you guys?
Oh God. You know, I think it's the habit really of you think I say it's a habit, you know, not just the drinking, but you reinvent your whole life in what you used to do for fun. You know, he was not a bar drinker. He was more of a home drinker. I was a bar drinker. I loved attention, the people, going to the bar, playing pool. And so when you get sober, all of a sudden in your mind, you think, oh my God, there's nothing to do. There's nothing to do. And that's just so not true. But that was probably the hardest part in the beginning, is I thought, oh my gosh, am I going to find friends like me? And York Street, again, you know, there's meetings there that have 75 to 100 people. You know, when you're in a room that there's people that are just like you and in the same position as you, it's quite a powerful place to be. Yeah. So now, I mean, I'm never lacking for things to do. And the bar was just the only thing that I did. So I didn't know what else was out there. But that change was the hardest for me, thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do for fun now? Which is crazy that I even thought that way. But what about you?
You know, I think the hardest thing for me initially was kind of balking at the steps, and, you know, the procrastination on getting a sponsor and jumping into the work. And because I heard from, you know, the hierarchy of AA, they wouldn't like to be called that, but they were to me. I looked up to them and held them to certainly a higher candle, and would you know, constantly remind me and suggest, you know, this is what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And I think once I got involved in doing service work, that helped accelerate me into getting into the step work, because I'll never forget somebody telling me, you know, you should probably go ahead and serve up coffee. And I looked right at him, and I'm not going to repeat what I said to him.
Go get your own coffee. What do I look like, a waitress?
Because I'm like, that's not me. I'm not doing that. I didn't say it quite like that, but later on we became friends, and he was a good guy, and as many folks were that I looked to, for camaraderie, if you will, not just guidance and suggestions and going along the right path. So that was that. It was easy for me changing my habits in my life because I just kept seeing the daylight each and every day, and it was just a brighter spot in my life than I'd been living.
Yeah. So what else changed when you got sober?
Everything. The way we communicate changed. I mean, people that see our scare cams, we scream around the corner, and scare each other all the time. But in my drinking days, I was a screamer, yeller, if I get mad. And I still am very loud. I have been told many times, but if I get angry, watch out. I don't need a megaphone. But we don't, Ben and I, that's the one thing that I love about our relationship, and the only relationship I've ever had in sobriety, is with him. And the communication is just so much more real. And, we still get angry and still, have our disagreements, but they might last for 5 minutes, and we certainly don't yell at each other. So I don't miss that at all. The drunken yelling, screaming, fights and,
yeah.
So communication's big for me.
You know what I think was real helpful for me and people that got sober around the same time that I did, that I kind of we looked to each other. Actually, in the same 2, 3, 4 month period, there was a collective group of us that, similar in age, similar in the generation, that we really didn't know this way of living, and how, and like Julie, adding to what she said, is how can you have fun without the party utensils, right? Because that was what it was all about, whether it was happy, sad, didn't matter. That party utensils were part of the daily routine, and to not have that, and to try to create just regular daily routine, not to mention entertainment and work schedule, things of that nature, that was a bit challenging. But once we were able, luckily, because of the circle and because of Denver, there was a lot of opportunities to do a lot of stuff sober and have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Now I like to be at home. I like to have, sober parties at the house where we take out garbage bags, full of diet soda pop and Pepsi cans. And, the neighbors at our old house, when we first got together, they knew we were sober, but they're like, you guys, you would think you just had these raging parties, because we go out with bags and bags of, cans, but they're pop cans, because when we had parties, really, when they say in recovery, you change people, places, and things, we changed all of that. And I still, to this day, I do not allow alcohol in my home, or gluten, because I have celiac disease, but no alcohol, no drugs, that kind of thing. And it's just part of our life, and I don't want it. You can drink at your own house. I just don't have it at my own. And that was a choice that we made a long time ago.
Well, I think that's a reasonable thing to do. And, how difficult would it be if, my husband still drinks, and not to the level that we drank together. But he's got his Coors Light in the fridge in the basement, and that doesn't faze me, because I was never much of a Coors Light fan myself.
Right.
But if he was still drinking Chardonnay, that would be something else entirely, because that was my drink of choice. And so, while we don't have a sober house, it's not too far off the mark. And, I think it's, but it is different. It's different than knowing that then it's a sober house. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point to bring up though, Nancy, that just because we don't drink, I mean, your husband obviously is not an alcoholic. We were both alcoholics. And so that's why we choose to not have alcohol, but that's not always the case for everybody. You know, each scenario is going to be different. And, you know, for your husband to have a couple of Coors Lights, you know, great. People, they don't have to get it all out of their house. This is an individual disease, you
Right.
know, take control of your own. Your husband doesn't have a problem. So that's great.
Okay, so tell us a little bit more about your business and how can our viewers find you?
Oh, I would love that. We have Double Horn Construction. Ben has been a carpenter forever and a day. He started taking carpentry, you know, in high school, I think, and he never got out of it. So he started doing carpentry work forever and ever. I did not. I worked in the car business for a long time, was in sales. I'm an artist. But when we got together, then I kind of dropped everything that I was doing to get sober. I quit my job at the car dealership and met Ben. So I started working with him, which is a funny story. He told me, I'm going to give you a job. And on the first day on the job, he throws this big tarp out in the lawn, and he dumps out his whole entire tool bag, which had nails and screws and screwdrivers, I mean, it was a huge tool bag with all this crap on this tarp. And I just looked at him like, who's going to clean that up? And he said, okay, I want you to organize my tool bag. I said, oh no, I'm not doing that. Kind of like serving coffee, but so I did it, and I sucked it up, and I organized his tool bag. But then he later found out that I could hold sheetrock above my head while he screwed it in, and that there was other things that I could do other than just, you know, clean his tool bag. But so yeah, Double Horn Construction became a thing before I came along, but it was named something else. But now we've had Double Horn Construction for quite a long time, and we are licensed residential and commercial. And we have doublehornconstruction.com if anybody wants to see some of our before and after pictures. And we have a Double Horn Construction Facebook page that is kind of a work in progress. I'm still trying to pay more attention to that, but doublehornconstruction.com is probably the best. Or call us. I mean, our numbers are out there. We welcome any phone call.
I will have to add, we fell in love on that job. She was actually my buddy. We were friends.
True story.
No.
When he dumped out the tool bag, and I thought I wanted to kill him, I then fell in love with him. So
I think when she had a 7-foot piece of sheetrock held up above her head all by herself, that was the start of the love period.
good deal.
Absolutely. And my husband is in the remodeling business, so he would appreciate that very much. Since I'm 5 foot tall, I'm of no use at all when it comes to hanging
Right.
sheetrock.
Right. Not in most common areas. You're right.
Yeah, not good. So, okay, so let's see. Anything else that you want to add? Any other stories you want to tell?
Oh my gosh. I love to tell stories, but time is limited.
Well, we've got about 6 minutes left or so, depending on your story. And
well, I would like people, if there's anyone on here that we've invited, to know a little bit more about you and your story. I love it.
well, aren't you sweet? Well, I was, I started drinking in high school with my buddies, and I grew up in an alcoholic household. My father was an alcoholic. My mom was a heavy drinker. And, so I was, my 40s were pretty much of a high functioning over drinker. And when my father, I was 50 when my father, he had gotten sober, but he couldn't stay sober. He was, in and out. And he killed himself. And then that kicked my drinking into high gear.
Mm-hmm.
I was just racked with guilt and grief, and the wheels started to come off. And I didn't, you know, I knew I had a problem, but everyone around me was drinking pretty much like me. And so it was really easy to bury my head in the sand and ignore the red flags. And so, you know, I didn't, I wasn't quite ready to admit that I was an alcoholic. And the thought of going to AA was just demoralizing. And I couldn't afford to go to rehab. And I wanted something different, you know, but I couldn't find it. And so on Friday the 13th of March 2009, we'd been out for happy hour, and I realized once we got home that I had finished the last little bit of wine that was in the bottle, and I said, damn it, should have stopped at the liquor store. And Jimmy said, well, I think you've probably had enough. And that was enough to trigger me into rage, and then horrible pity. And so between that and then, you know, feeling like I was, you know, a burden to everyone, I pulled his gun out of the nightstand and pointed it at my head. And fortunately, the safety was on. And when I figured out how to release the safety, the only thing that got shot was an innocent pillow on the bed.
Wow.
And so as our dear friend Richard used to say, I was standing at the intersection of desperation and grace.
Oh my gosh.
And the next day I called my neighbor who was in AA, and she took me to my first meeting, and, you know, I was just devastated. You know, It was just like, it has come to this, you know, and it was just devastating. I was just full of shame and fear and regret, and it was horrible.
You know, Nancy, I appreciate how honest you have been with this. That is deep. And I wasn't sure what to, you know, of course, all of us in our drinking have stories that are, people don't like to talk about them. And in the beginning of my sobriety, or in the beginning of my drinking, my heavy drinking in my younger 20s, and I had first moved from Arizona to Colorado, a girlfriend of mine had committed suicide, and I was thrusted into depression and even deeper drunkenness.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm able to think about it now and think, well, thank God it didn't happen. But I got drunk, broke away from the people that were kind of watching over me, if you will, because I was so drunk, ran down the street and ended up halfway down Colfax at a Walgreens and asked them for the strongest sleeping pills that I could get. Well, they're not stupid. So I did buy some sleeping pills, but it was some all natural herbal, you know, whatever. And I took the entire bottle and then ran to the tree where my friend had committed suicide, because I had spent a week sitting there crying every night about this, and passed out. So by the time whoever found me, I don't even remember, to be honest, called 911. I had to spend the night in the hospital. You know, they were going to pump my stomach. And I remember, well, I remember a lot of it, but after the fact, you know, when I woke up, but all I can remember is pulling the thing out of my throat when they were going to pump my stomach, because I had woke up, because I wasn't on narcotics. It was some kind of herbal, you know, remedy, which promptly gave me diarrhea and made me tired, right? But, you know, thank God in our drunken stupors that we are stupid and not, you know, thinking properly, or you wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be here.
Right.
So I appreciate you, whoever's listening. There is good and bad to all of this, and it's not all hearts and flowers. You know, our life and how we got here today, and we still have our struggles today in sobriety. But
Sure.
Those struggles that you and I are talking about, and Ben's got some stories too, that's the real deal, and that's what brought us to York Street, and that's exactly why we say, I don't want to live this way anymore.
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly right. And there's, getting sober was the best thing I've ever done for myself. So, and I know you guys agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay. So rapid fire questions. What's your favorite food?
Mexican.
Mexican.
Hot.
What's your favorite book?
Ooh. What's that? I can't think of the name of it. It's a Stephen King book, but I'm reading so many more self-help books now that are more of a learning curve. But oh my God, I can't think of the name of my Stephen King book.
My favorite is one I'm reading now, Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh yeah, well that is a good one. The Lazy Way to Invest in Real Estate. That is a great book. It's a quick, easy read. But I'll have to tell you that another time because I've forgotten. It's a Stephen King book, and it's
Stephen King.
Misery.
Oh,
I read that book in like a day. I mean, I couldn't put it down. Like
Yeah.
12 hours, I just read and read and read. Anyway.
That's a good one. And Jimmy loves Stephen King.
Oh,
Okay,
misery.
what's your favorite curse word?
Well, I bought my niece a pair of earrings. They're just one letter, and it's the letter F.
That's
Kind of as a joke, because that's.
What's the book that Richard gave you?
Oh my gosh, Richard, our friend that we're talking about, Nancy.
Yes.
He gave me a book. It's on my table over here. It's called The Vulgar Tongue, and it's slang. I'll have to show you sometime.
Oh, I would love
He had
to
it
see
forever,
that.
and I saw it at his apartment before he passed away, and he said, "I want you to have that." I have a potty mouth. That is absolutely no secret.
Oh, I talk like a sailor. So
And I say shit a lot, but I do like the F word.
yeah. What about you, Ben?
Do not say your favorite cuss word.
Well, I kind of concur with her on that's one of my favorite. The four letter words are good, and F's. There's a few F bombs during the course of a day. No doubt.
We warned everybody about adult language. So
Okay, all right, good. Yeah.
Drop one of those F bombs. You're welcome to do it because that's
Yeah.
my favorite word.
Yeah, that it
And
is.
it has been. I asked the same rapid fire questions to all of my guests, and fuck is resounding
Oh, fuck!
Nice.
resounding popular one. So
Well, now listen, it can be used in so many ways. And if my mother is watching and she was able to log on to this, God bless her, because she's not very tech savvy. But Mom, if you're watching, it is the funniest thing when my mother says the F word. And she does not say it very often. So when she says it, it has a whole new hysterical meaning. Yeah, I love it.
well, I like to interject the word into everything pretty much, and absolutely is one of my very favorite words.
I love it. Love it.
So you guys sit tight, and thank you so much for being on the show with me. I so appreciate it. This has been a great conversation.
Yes, thank you.
And I really appreciate you sharing your stories. And I know that that your stories are going to resonate with a lot of people. And so I really appreciate your willingness to be open and expose yourself here on Facebook. And, one of my biggest passions is to eliminate the stigma of alcoholism and addiction. And I feel the only way we can do that is by speaking up about it and,
That's right.
and telling people about it. And I think it's so, so important. And so I love that people can see this side of sobriety and this side of alcoholism, because, if people met us on the street, they wouldn't know that we have this background. And
Right.
it's important for us to share it, I think. So thank you so, so much.
Proud to be American and proud to be an alcoholic.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so you guys sit tight, and thank you everyone for joining us. You can reach me at nancy@amazingoutlookcoaching.com, and I've added Equus Coaching to my lineup. So if anyone wants to go play with horses with me down in Parker, I would love for you to get in touch. So thanks so much for joining us and have a great evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.